Granddad never mentioned that there were men as dark as this. Wow, look at that nose. He's just like a pig. He's a monster! Hi!
In today's episode, I'm joined by Wen. You wrote the article, He Only Liked Me Because I'm Asian. Thanks for joining me.
Hi. Yeah, I'm glad to.
Let's start off. What is yellow fever?
Yellow fever is kind of just like when someone kind of fetishizes the idea of being Asian. And it's not limited to just girls as well. It's also like the whole appeal of you is just limited to the fact that you're Asian and they like you for it. And there's like a lot of like fetishization and how like Asian like women or like Asian men are like exotic, Asian women are submissive. Yeah.
Okay. So it's basically a fetish.
Yeah, it's a fetish.
Okay. What have been some of your encounters with yellow fever?
I think a lot of times, like especially on dating apps, Asian women are one of the ones that are like the most swiped right. In some ways, it should be like flattering, but it's kind of hard to find it flattering when most of the responses you get are like very like the racial undertones very heavy. Like one of the ones that my friends joke about the most is like oftentimes guys collect Asian girls, quote unquote, collect Asian girls. Like they would message us and be like, oh, another Asian girl on my list. Or like just creepy messages along the line that like kind of like pushes us away from dating.
Okay.
Online dating or like cross-racial dating.
Okay. So basically like messages that would be, I guess, suspect is where most of that happens, and it's like online dating, like Tinder.
Yeah, even though like their intentions, we don't know about their intentions, it may be harmless, but the way it has come across, it just makes us feel uncomfortable. And the fact that it's happened, especially if you're an Asian woman who like grew up in a Western environment, it's just super uncomfortable for you because you don't know what to believe or like what to trust, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Would it be a deal breaker for you if you found out that someone you were dating was into Asian women?
It definitely would. Like I found out like like last year, I found out someone that I dated started exclusively dating Asian women after me. And there's like 4 of us in a row, and I felt so uncomfortable by that because he was not partially Asian. He was not Asian. It was just a trend of just Asian girls. And I don't know, like I kind of stopped talking to him, like unfollowed him, blocked him everywhere because I just felt like I don't want to be a part of that, his narrative of like, oh, like I have a lot of Asian girls because Asian girls like me. But like, I feel like a lot of us are like kind of tricked into it because we don't know about that. I believe most self-respecting like women, if they know that they're just a part of a fetish and not being genuinely liked, they wouldn't want to pursue a romantic relationship with another guy because of that.
May I ask, was that guy who had that preference white?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to read a list of red flags that you look for in a guy to see if they have yellow fever. 1, he talks about how exotic Asian girls are, asking you if the stereotypes are true. 2, he tells you about his travels in Southeast Asia, even if you aren't from Southeast Asia. 3, he feels like he's super Asian because he really enjoys Asian food and has a lot of Asian friends. 4, he has consecutively dated more than 2 Asian girls. 5, he assumes you're Chinese, tells you about how he's learning Chinese and speaks Chinese. 6, all the above. Are there any other signs that you would think of?
Honestly, I feel like just basic research. Oh my God, sorry, I just dropped my phone. Basic research. Sometimes if you go on their like Instagram following list, you see like it's entirely Asian girls. Even though you guys are not in an Asian country, don't have like that many Asian classmates. Like I'm currently in Amsterdam, where Asian girls are not really the common thing here. Like having to move here from Shanghai. So when I do like match with someone on Tinder, I see on their following list, it's a bunch of Asian girls, like Asian girls I do know, because there's a few of us and we kind of all know each other because there's so few of us. And then I hear from each other, we hear from each other about which guys are like who have yellow fever. It's just kind of like a little background check from their social media presence.
Okay. Moving on to a different subject, you mentioned Celeste Ng's article when Asian women are harassed for marrying non-Asian men. What were your thoughts about that particular article?
Okay, I think like my personal opinion about that is that it's not very fair when it comes to if Asian people marry outside of their race, because when Asian men marry outside of their race, they're like praised for it. They're like, oh, like you're getting that white girl. Like almost like being complimented and awarded in a way for doing so. But when Asian women do it, there's a lot of like hate towards them. But I think the problem is that it's not all Asian women are exclusively dating non-Asian people, because I've dated Asian people in the past and I enjoy doing so. But whenever I do decide to choose to date outside of my race, I get the most hate within my race for it, because they think I'm like ruining our bloodline or whatever. People think that by doing so, I'm being white chasing. Like my friends dated, like my friends, when they do date someone who's outside, my Asian friends, when they do date someone who's outside of their race, you know, they get like nasty things called, like, people say nasty things to them. People call them like a white man's whore. And it's like horrible. Like, why would you say that about someone who's just dating outside of their race?
Do you think that Asian women may sometimes reject men because of their race?
I believe that's a possibility, but that's like a singular case. I don't think I can like speak generally about everyone. Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I say that is because one of the things that Celeste Ng mentions in her article is a subreddit called Asian Identity. And she says that when Asian women marry out, the people on Asian Identity see that as an example that Asian men are undesirable. Do you agree with what Asian Identity believes in that, or not?
I don't believe, there's a lot of talk about how like Asian men are seen and like not desirable for Asian women. But like in popular media, I've seen that like Asian men become more and more prominent and become like desired by not just Asian women and white women as well. A lot of my Asian guy friends have turned to be like, oh, I only date white girls now because they don't find Asian women appealing. I think it's a two-way street.
A two-way street in terms of like, I guess Asian men are also dating white girls because they can't really critique who Asian women date. Okay. There were some issues that I saw in the article. I mentioned them in a previous episode, but I wanted to bring them in here before I bring up my next question. So Celeste points to an example of a black guy married to an Asian woman in Jen Feng to say that Asian women are harassed for outmarrying. But Celeste is in a relationship with a white guy, as is Christine Tan, and Hannah Wu was in a trailer with a white guy, according to that article. So the majority of the women in that article aren't outmarrying overall, they're outmarrying the white guys. She also mentioned, Celeste does, later in the article, that she didn't find Asian men attractive in the past. And Asian Identity has cited examples of Asian women saying that they don't find Asian men attractive, such as in the article, "For years, I was vehemently against dating Asian guys even though I'm Chinese." The author says the following: "During my teens and early 20s, I was vehemently against dating Asian guys." Here's my question based off of all of that. If men who are not white are reading articles where Asian women are either dating mostly white guys and rejecting or just rarely dating guys who aren't white, do you think there's any merit to their frustration from their perspective?
I think there is a merit to their frustration because they have to face, these comments and these doubts on a daily basis, like even self-doubt, because they're looking at their husband or their partner thinking like, does he really like me, or does he only like the fact that I'm Asian? I think they have a right to talk about this, to bring up a point that when you're dating someone, you don't really know whether or not they like you for who you are. And I do see the problem of being hypocritical, saying that she wasn't attracted to Asian men before, and but she's getting criticized by for example Asian men for dating out of their racial group. But I think that's one of the singular cases that it's not the thing for everyone. If she picked out, if she stated specifically, like, I'll never date an Asian guy, I'm only gonna date white guys, that's the idea of that is super problematic, and that should not be allowed, because love should go beyond on what's on the surface and what's in the racial, your racial group. Yeah,
I guess what I'm getting at is that it looks as though she maybe have perpetuated that issue, and the reason why she wrote that article might have been because she felt as though it hit close to home because she's married to a white guy, and she said before she didn't find Asian men to be attractive, and a lot of this stuff, it's hitting close to home for her, so she writes this article in a way that tries to do damage control, not really, I guess, engage in why some men might be angry at her for her dating preferences.
I get why some men might be angry at her by the way she's saying it, but I think a lot of it is internalized racism as well. Because when you're Asian, like, especially I grew up in a Western environment as well, and I really wanted to break out of the Asian stereotype shell. Like when people would be like, "Oh, like you must be good at math, you must be good at something," I'd be like, "No, I'm bad at it." Like I've tried to fight so hard against it, and like how I know a lot of Asians who grew up in Western environments have like an Asian friend group and like a white friend group because they didn't really want to be confined and be like, "Oh, like you're Asian and you only hang out with Asian people, therefore you're blah blah blah," or like, "Oh, you're Asian and you only date Asian people." Like what's wrong with other people? Like you face that kind of criticism from a really young age, and I get like I kind of get where she's coming from, and I definitely feel like she has experienced some sort of like self-manifested internalized racism
Okay.
because of her upbringing.
Sorry?
Because of like Asians upbringing in Western environments.
So furthermore, if there are, looking at it from a different perspective, if there are men who are attracted to Asian women but are not desired by those same Asian women who see it as a deal breaker to have a preference for Asian women, would that put those men in a no-win situation?
I think the thing is, I don't think there's a difference between having a preference for Asian women and fetishizing them. I think it's two completely different things. Having a preference for someone, like it's like saying you have like blonde hair, blue eyes. You know, that's a preference. It's something just like, oh, I always date blondes, where someone's saying like I always date short girls. It's preference. But when you involve it with racial groups and the implications of it, it just becomes a whole different deal. And I don't think that those two things can be compared, having a preference and having yellow fever.
So, I'm just trying to understand. It's a matter of whether or not you're liking a particular group of people because of the perceived characteristics of that group.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. This is going to be redundant, but I'll ask anyways. My final question is, what are your thoughts on racial dating preferences overall?
I think, honestly, I don't think racial dating preferences should be a thing. I know it's really hard to like say that without sounding like, such a fake person, but it really should go beyond what you see on the surface of someone. You can't just simply decide you like someone because of their race or how they look. It should really be what's underneath all that.
Okay. It's just, I guess what I'm getting at is that usually, and we talked about this before because you said you watched some videos on the channel, is that when I have this discussion about yellow fever, it's almost always that the Asian women that are talking about this are gravitating to white guys exclusively.
But the problem is I'm not. I kind of stopped swiping right on white guys altogether because I'm afraid of something like this. It's turned me off from dating, like having an interracial relationship, because I'm afraid of, the backlash kind of from my own racial group, where like the implications of like, does this person really like me, or do they just like the Asian part of me?
And you might be worried about the stigma that is associated with dating white guys. Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that that's what the opposition might have felt for quite some time. Like if you're a black guy who saw Asian women dating white guys and you tried to pursue Asian women, you would be labeled as yellow fever and you had to have that look over your shoulder, but they didn't. And now it's like the shoe's on the other foot. And it's just a matter of like, I guess for some men, it's a matter of just trying to make the other side feel as though what they felt they had to go through for a long time by feeling as though they would strike out just because they had a racial preference for Asian women.
Yeah. I understand. But I feel like it's like yellow fever has been a thing for so long. And right now it's very like obvious, like it's more prominent because you start seeing it in like popular culture, where like around like my friends, a lot of my friends who were white families, they moved to China and their dad gets like a 20-year-old Asian wife. Or like when my friends who visited Thailand, she said it was really creepy how all the expats had like an 18-year-old Thai wife like right next to them, and they would do all these creepy things, and everyone felt super uncomfortable seeing these. And especially, I think in Asia, marrying how like cross interracial dating is very different than Asia and outside of Asia. I think I can say that confidently about how people do it. Because in Asia, people would think, oh, like you're so successful and you're so well read, you can marry like, American white guy because you were able to go to America, you're able to communicate with them. And it's almost seems as a status symbol for some families. But in America, there's so much more racial implication and historical implication, and like how our how the racial group dynamics are in America, that makes it really different from how it is in Asia.
Yeah. Just to add another point, you had mentioned, because I just thought about this, you had mentioned that Asian men don't get criticized for dating white girls. I think part of the reason why the criticism may not be as bad is because of the fact that we do see like white guys going to Asia and then marrying Asian women. Yeah. These Asian women leaving Asian men for these white guys, which puts Asian men at a disadvantage. So like when they're able to do it, I mean, yeah, there's still like a white worship there, but when they're able to find a partner, it's a matter of, oh my God, you were able to overcome the adversity that's associated with white male, Asian female to find a partner. You know, we'll overlook the white worship there. That might be there because of the fact that, you know, your own women don't necessarily want you. So, you know, good luck. I think that might play into why some people don't criticize Asian men for their dating preferences as much as Asian
there's also a subreddit like called Hapa, where it's like they talk about how like when they have Asian mothers and white fathers, and you know, like when they turn out like more Asian, it's kind of a like a lot of them are kind of self-hating because they feel like their own mother wouldn't have found them desirable because they're Asian. Yeah. You know, like other Asian women wouldn't find so as well. And one of my ex-boyfriends actually did introduce me to that subreddit because he was half Asian, half white, and he often felt that struggle, like not being desirable to Asian people were white women. Like Asian women were white women because he felt like at this awkward in-between point.
Yeah. Hopper's, I've seen that subreddit. Your Asian Tiger was the one that started that, and he had a white father and an Asian mother, and
it's most common pairing as well, having a white father and an Asian mother.
Sorry?
It's the most common pairing as well, having a white father and an Asian mother.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really rare like to see a swap like reversed.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of power dynamics that play into that, and it's just it's something that I've seen a lot in the media and growing up, and you know, he's a product of that, I think, and you know, it's not pretty. But I don't know. I think those are all my questions. If you had anything else to add, go ahead. Otherwise, thank you.
I want to comment on the comments I got on Leafy Magazine. Mm-hmm. So basically, wait, let me pull that out. Basically, it's someone I knew from my own community in high school, and it was criticizing me for, you know, putting these men supposedly on blast for having a preference for dating Asian women. But to be honest, in my opinion, that when I wrote the article, I made sure to be really careful with the word choices, to keep everyone anonymous. I made sure to really be careful with that. And I think the article it's based on my own personal experiences and how my past relationships and how my friends around me with their own cross-racial relationships has occurred. And it does not apply to everyone, obviously, because you know, it's like unique to everyone's experience. Some people might not see what I see as fetishization or yellow fever as the same as what their definition of yellow fever and like fetishization are. But I do want to make a clear distinction about having a preference is very different from having a fetish, because that's been brought up in the comments as well. That's like, oh, you can't shame white men having a preference for Asian women because what if you're just having a preference for white men? And honestly, when most of us are choosing a partner, we're not thinking, oh, like this person's white, I'm going to date them, I'm going to marry them, or whatever. A lot of times we're just trying to date, we're just dating, we're just trying to find someone like everyone else. And I don't think anyone enjoys being fetishized or being treated like you're just an Asian girl, like, oh, you're a submissive, quiet Asian girl, and that's it.
I'll put it this way. The way I look at it is that if you're getting, or Asian women are getting messages saying stuff about, hey, I like Asian girls because they're submissive and like you're so different from all the other girls that I've dated, like creepy crap like that, like, okay, there's a problem there. That shouldn't be something that you have to deal with. Yeah. I understand that. The problem, I guess, that some people have is that issue, which is part of a larger issue, in my opinion, of like the media and in some cases Asian women dealing, I guess, tolerating with that crap from white men because they want to marry up. Like, because of that, I guess, double standard plus the, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. The double standard and the desire to to date white guys, and that's what it is. The subjective nature that comes with saying this person has yellow fever, this person doesn't. This person has yellow fever, this person doesn't. For many guys, it's a matter of, okay, I just like Asian women and I don't want to have to deal with a bunch of BS just because some guy on OkCupid said something nasty to you. Like, I will respect, I'm learning your culture because I think that this is what you may be into because you're of this race, and I'm trying to learn more about you by showing interest in that. And I'm getting slammed by that because of some bad apples. So what I'm going to do now, as in the opposition, is make every person who is an Asian woman who dates only white guys or has shown a preference for white guys, I'm going to do to them what they do to me, and say that every Asian woman is a white worshiper, and say all these nasty things. And then Asian women say, you can't say all Asian women who date white guys are like that. But then you can't say that every guy who likes Asian women has yellow fever. I guess.
Yeah, but obviously, I stated in an article that I don't think it should be generalized. Not all white men who ended up with Asian women, or all Asian women who ended up with white men are like fetishizing each other. Obviously, it's based on singular cases, but this is based on like our experiences, like my personal experiences, and why I choose not to engage with these. You know, like if I do notice these signs and I do feel like I will get uncomfortable by it, I choose not to. And the whole article is not. Sorry, let me open the mic.
Yeah, that's. I was going to mention that. Yeah.
No, it's not limited to just white men as well.
I understand that. I guess what I'm just saying, I'm trying to say is that the anger, like that article, that Celeste Ng article, is a manifestation of, I would say, the opposition seeing the hypocrisy and the double standards, and they're just saying, for lack of a better word, fuck it. I'm just gonna go on Reddit and I'm gonna post all day about how Asian women are hypocritical, Asian women are white worshipping, because I can't win. You're gonna tell me, like, for example, like, okay, I like Asian women. That's a deal breaker. My exes are Asian, deal breaker. Like, I have this preference. This is what I want. I'm gonna do my best to try and not creep you out, but this is what I'm going to pursue. And I'm striking out. On top of which, there are white guys who are doing the exact same things, but you're dating them. You know, it's just a matter of, like, from the position of, I guess, Asian identity, hoppers, and men of color, it's like you can't win. It's not a matter of whether or not Asian women are actually being fetishized. It's a matter of, because of that, there are men who can't win. And in some cases, Asian women use that as an excuse to not date these men that they aren't interested in at all. So they have, like, some kind of cover. And there's just like, the frustration comes in feeling as though you can't win with women who are just looking for a way to date white guys without taking the responsibility that's associated with toxic white male Asian female couples. And from the perspective of somebody who isn't white, you strike out for something that in some cases you can't really control. What are you going to do?
I think these cases that, I don't know, I've heard a lot of Asian men just, like, do you know who Constance Wu is?
Yes.
Yes. She's been like, she doesn't want to be an advocate for, like, Asian, the Asian community in Hollywood. And a lot of Asian men that I've talked to find it really hypocritical that she used to use her Asian identity as an Asian woman as a selling point, but at the same time simultaneously dating a white guy. A lot of people found her to be hypocritical, and like, obviously a lot of us don't see her as someone we want to represent our community. Like, on one hand, thinking Asian men are undesirable and dating white men, but at the same time who wants to be advocate for Asian rights. Obviously that's really, like, honestly fucked up. Yeah. But I do think these cases of, like, Asian women refusing to date outside of the Caucasian race is really fucked up, and, like, no one should be out there saying, oh, I'm not going to date a specific race because I find this race more desirable, because that's not how it works, honestly.
Yeah.
If you're only pursuing someone just based on their appearance and racial groups, that's, not okay.
Yeah. Well, mentioning Constance Wu, she's made, it's not just the fact that she's dating white guys. She's made statements that kind of lead to the fact that she may be dating white guys for the wrong reasons, such as, I think there was an NBC wanted to do show called Mail Order Bride, and she said she'd support it if the woman made more money than the guy. When Fresh Off the Boat was renewed for a new season, she said that she was disappointed in that. I mean, Fresh Off the Boat is like the first Asian American show on television.
Gave her the spotlight, and she was being really ungrateful for the whole situation, even though that show did help a lot, like help the Asian community like move into Hollywood and get more recognition.
Yeah. So she's also she was at the Women's March talking about the fetishization of Asian women is problematic, and then that she's dating a white guy. Like, it's not a matter of like, okay, she's dating a white guy, that's a problem. Like, it's gotten to that point that I think some people just see an Asian woman for a white guy and they just write them off as a hypocrite. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of understand where they're coming from. But in Constance Wu's case, she's made several statements and done several things that contradict her Asian activism that, with in addition to dating a white guy, just kind of make people write her off as not really serious about anything and is just looking to further her own career. Another thing is that she's now playing a stripper in a new movie.
Oh, yeah, I love that movie.
I mean, like,
in the movie, they like wrote her to end up with a white guy as well, with G-Eazy.
You know, this is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. Like,
the whole timing and the fact that that's her reputation, it just made everything look even worse.
Yeah. And it's like when you see the loudest people always barking about yellow fever, always dating white guys, it takes away, I guess, the actual issues in which people on OkCupid are saying nasty things to Asian women online. Because it's like, well, you're going to date them anyways. And even if I don't do those things, you're going to say that I have a fetish, but you'll date that guy. So I don't really care if you're getting these messages. You probably deserve it. Is, I guess, the mindset that some people have because people like Constance Wu say one thing and then do another. And that devalues the whole issue that some Asian women actually do have to go through when it comes to fetishization.
Yeah, I understand.
But I guess what I would just say, just another point is just, you know, I do want to say from the perspective of somebody who isn't white that for a lot of guys they can't win in this scenario, and it took a long time for us to get to a position where we could have a conversation with the opposition, because if we even brought this up like 4 years ago, we get dismissed as having yellow fever. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's a lot of frustration from guys from that silencing and then feeling as though like they're not desirable by Asian women who want to date white guys. So while people like on Asian identity may take it too far, and I have my disagreements with them on many other issues, I think we should allow them to have a space where they could just go as nuts as they want, as long as they don't, you know, do crazy things in the real world. And, you know, just, I guess in some cases, to the less radical ones on that side or other people, just listen to what they're trying to say as we're trying to do with you. And that's all we can do at this point.
I think I think people who do have a preference for Asian women or do find Asian women to be desirable, there's a lot of other ways to approach it than being creepy about it. That's what most people are getting on, you know, social media, like the DMs that people get, where like the messages they get on Tinder. Most of the time, Asian girls get things that are on the creepier side, and that kind of puts them off, and that's what makes everyone upset. It's because they get all these like nasty messages all the time. There's obviously like a respectful way to approach this, but I think a lot of people choose not to use that way.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, online dating isn't fun, but there's a lot of weirdos out there. But you know, I guess what I'm just saying is that it's a matter of just trying to find a middle ground in a situation. I think where both people are at the extreme on this. That's all. That's all I guess what I'm trying to get at, and with these videos. And I've done a lot, and I've heard very similar arguments. Like I've had the same conversations over and over and over again. So, but at least there's a conversation. I don't know if there was anything else you had to add, but
I mean, honestly, it's all about like mutual respect. If like, honestly, don't see Asian women as like creatures that like horrible. Like if they choose to date a specific race for the wrong reasons, you know, like shame on them. They're hypocrites. Especially if they advocate for Asian women rights and like against yellow fever, and they still choose to do those things that are exactly what they're hating on, you know. But at the same time, I think there's a large group of Asian women there who didn't do anything, who, you know, don't have a preference for white men or whatever, you know, and they're just getting attacked simply for like dating outside their race once or twice.
Yeah. I mean, that's just that's the matter of the way things go. Like there's a loud movement, and then there's a reactionary movement to that, and then it just bounces back and forth. I mean, that's just the way life is.